Hello and welcome to this new episode of Daughters of Narcissistic Mothers podcast. A couple of days ago, I received a message from a listener who is currently planning her wedding and finding dealing with her narcissistic mother to be very challenging at this time. So, in response, I decided to do an episode on wedding planning with a narcissistic mother. And what I will share in this episode might also be helpful for other events you might need to plan that may involve your mother and that have an importance for you. Also, this episode may be helpful if you have daughters who are about to marry. Not because you are a narcissistic mother yourself, that's not what I'm saying, but because when we have had such a mother, we may end up repeating some of the patterns without meaning to. So, gaining awareness of such patterns can support you in noticing it too. I know this has helped me a lot with my daughters on different topics. So let me slow down for a moment and ask you, are you in the middle of planning your wedding and your mother is driving you crazy? Are you in a committed relationship but afraid to take the next step as you don't know how you could possibly handle a wedding with your mother being involved? Are you still looking back at your wedding feeling horrible about how it all went because of your mother? Was planning your wedding with your mother such a nightmare that you're terrified about planning anything else? Are you considering a secret wedding to be the only solution? Or are you wishing more than anything that your mother would get involved, but she's dismissing your wedding as if it was just another day? So if your answer is yes to any of the questions that I just asked, I really get it. This is a topic that stirs a lot, and there are so many expectations and social pressures and conditioning that we've received going on around weddings that it is an intense thing to navigate at best at times, but with a narcissistic mother in the picture, it gets even more intense. I have been there. I've got married almost 16 years ago. And to avoid the pressure from both narcissistic families, although I wasn't aware of their narcissism back then, we did so very privately. It was like not a secret wedding. It would have been better maybe if it was. But it was away from everyone. But at the time, I was still completely enmeshed with my mother, and I had no awareness of how her influence had played into every choice I had made on the matter. And to top it all up, she sent me a message just a couple of days before the set date asking me effectively if my fiancé had changed his mind yet. Sort of, has he realized how much of a pain you are, and that you're not worth being married to. This triggered me to no end, obviously, at the time, because I believed that everything that my mother said was true. So I thought that if she feels like sending me such a message, it must be because she has had the feeling that my partner had doubts. It never occurred to me that it was to it was because she was a narcissistic mother. I didn't know that. So this whole thing sent me down the rabbit hole of my lack of confidence, spiraling in a pit of despair, which resulted in a fight with said fiancé at that time. Now, all went well in the end, and we are still here today, so thankfully that was resolved. But you can see how the effects of just one message can actually be quite devastating, because they know when to send it. They have like this perfect capacity to pick the right moment. So I didn't know that she was a narcissist, as I mentioned, at the time, and I was still under her spell. So even we put in distance, even we were in a different country, and we did it in a different place. So it was a country that was neither my country or my husband's country. We were away from everyone. But even with the distance, the emotional abuse was still strong, and I was completely unaware of it. And the reason I share this with you is just to let you know that whatever it is you're experiencing around this topic, you're not alone, and you're not crazy in all of this. And already by becoming aware of the mechanism, and knowing why your mother behaves this way, how she could possibly behave, and be prepared for this, that can already make a massive difference. Had I known that my mother would have tried to manipulate the situation and myself in such ways, had I known that those messages, that's just what they were, it would have been very simple. I would have either blocked her already, or I would have just dismissed it as, oh yeah, that's just, mother playing one of her tricks, but this is not going to work because I know that's just her trick, has nothing to do with my partner, and so on. So organizing your wedding brings up all sorts of stuff when a narcissistic mother is involved. It is a topic with many aspects to it, and we all have our own unique experience of this. So I'm going to do my best to stay general and to cover as much as possible. You are welcome to share your own experience with me via email or in the comments, as well as any questions you might have. I'm going to go through why a narcissistic mother acts up at this point. What are the behaviors, the main ways that she can do that? And there's a good few, so bear with me. And then how can you go about the situation? I'm going to give a few ways that we can just manage the whole thing a little bit better and be affected a little bit less. So what can happen when you're planning your wedding with a narcissistic mother? All sorts of things can happen, really. But the most important thing to understand, which is at the source of it all, is that she will try to make it all about herself. That's the main thing you really need to understand. And why is that? Because to a narcissistic mother, you are an extension of her and mean to meet her own needs. And her most fundamental need is to get attention. Any kind of attention will do. So with that said, she can't accept that this particular event is about you. In some way or another, this is going to be her show, and she can do this in about one of about 3 ways. One way is complete neglect. So she will dismiss your wedding as an event of no importance, an inconvenience even in her schedule. Maybe she will say she won't attend at all, and causing you hurt by not participating in any way to the planning, or even not showing up for the day at all. So that's the neglect. That's the part that you might be one of the people that at the question, would you actually really like your mother to get involved, and she's just dismissing it, maybe you've answered yes. Well, then that's it. That's what your mother's technique or tactic is going to be, like making it about her. Like she can't make it about herself, so she's going to neglect the whole thing completely. In this way, she kind of makes it about herself, because all your attention, when you crave her to be there, when you need her to be there, as it's your mother, I get that, that is going to make it about herself. Your emotional world is going to be directed at her, causing you possibly to disregard your partner or everything else, to be unhappy, and to maybe go insisting with her to be there, trying to convince her, and all of that kind of stuff. The second way is sabotage. So stage something that will ruin the planning for you or the actual wedding day. This may include her own self-sabotage. So doing something to herself that will cause you to have to pay attention to her instead of to your wedding. And the third way is taking control of the entire event. So be part of absolutely everything, and using a lot of different techniques that we're going to see, tactics, it's a better word, that we're going to see in a minute, to actually take control of the entire event. I know that for some, the first option seems nearly a relief. If only my mother would just not be a part of it by her own choice, I would be spared all this. And I get that, but of course, as we mentioned, it is not that simple. First of all, because you might actually feel the need for your mother to be there. There might be a deep grief in the fact that she's not going to be there for you. Also, this may start questions from others as to why your mother is not there, which can cause more grief at a time where you deserve to feel happy and supported, and so on. So in this case, understand that none of what she's doing is your fault. That's really the main thing to understand. Or any indication of you being undeserving of her love. She's caught in her own story. She's unable to have you be more important than her. Her needs are the most important to her. It's like that's just the way narcissism works. So this is her way to get attention on herself. It's not your fault. That's really the only awareness to be able to have here. And as much as possible, trying not to focus all your attention on her, not give her what she wants, but actually just keep your focus on your planning, keep your focus on your event, keep your focus on your wedding, keep your focus on your future with your beautiful partner. Keep your focus on that. Understand that you actually don't need her to be there. And I get that that's something that needs to be practiced, but that's really the only way. Begging her, going after her, trying to insist, doing all of that is not going to do you any good. It's not going to be very helpful for you, for your emotional health, for your happiness. Because if she's doing this now, she's going to still do that again and again and again. And I know that because my mom, one of her biggest ways was always that, the neglect, the go away and threaten not to see me, threaten not to talk to me. Well, she left the country when I was 12. So like the neglect, the not being there, and I've spent years of my life chasing her, wanting her to be around, and giving all my attention to this relationship, trying my best to have her with me. And I took away attention from the really important things of my life, my own life, my partner, my husband, my children. When they came, it just gets to be a very unhelpful game when we keep playing their game. So that's the invitation. With that said, let's have a closer look to all the other possible behaviors of a narcissistic mother during wedding planning. In other words, what you could find yourself experiencing at this time. And if you have been through it all already, as I said, if you're one of those that has answered yes to, or your wedding is in the past, but you actually are looking back always thinking, oh, that went so horrible because of my mother, and maybe you even think it's your fault. Actually going through all of this, it may help you understand what actually happened and how it was not your fault at all. So let's see what are the possible behaviors. So 1, constant criticism. And this can be of you directly and of all your decisions. So she can criticize your hairstyle, the hairstyle you picked for the wedding, or the color theme, your body shape, your weight, and how you look, and all of that. So criticizing you directly, or the choice of the venue, the choice of the menu, the choice of guests, whatever, you name it. Whatever you say, she just criticizes it. No choice of yours is accepted. The next one is shaming. So shaming is a little bit different than the criticizing, because it's making you feel bad for anything that you want, for your choices, making you feel bad for wanting your wedding to be about you and your spouse. She could say things about, what about my needs? How can you be so insensitive to what I feel? How can you be so selfish? So making you feel bad and ashamed for actually wanting an event that is supposed to be about yourself and your partner, and not about her. I mean, making you feel like you should, to be a good daughter, making it all about her. Disapproving of the groom, that's an intense one. All the way to tell you how your life is going to be miserable with this person that you're choosing, saying things like, I wouldn't do it. But after all, it is your choice. And she could go also all the way to attack directly the spouse, accusing them of having a bad influence on you. So if you're sticking with your choices, for example, she could just go attack him, so, or her, whatever partner you are marrying, going, it's all their fault. They have a bad influence on you. You've never been such a bad daughter, and now all of a sudden look at your behavior. Something like that. Guilt tripping. So she could say things like, once you're married, I'll be alone. Who will take care of me when you are away on honeymoon? What will I do with myself then? So making you feel, and also guilt tripping you again, using it as a shaming way for wanting to make the wedding about yourself and your spouse, yet again. Financial control. She could volunteer to pay for things, which you may think that's really nice, like the dress or maybe even the honeymoon, only to throw it in your face later as a way to control your decision and for more guilt tripping. It's my money. I believe I have a say on what you decide. So she could just want to tell you where to go on honeymoon, or what dress to pick, or what venue to pick, just because it's her money and she's paying, giving her an extra edge over the I'm your mother and I have a right to say things. Now, not only she's your mother, but she's also paying for it. So double right to have a say on all your decisions. Or she could actually use it more on a guilt tripping way, so saying something like, you know how little money I have and I decided to give it to you. The least you could do is to let me plan, or to let me choose, or to let me whatever. Interfere effectively. So another behavior you can see is expecting her to be involved in every aspect of the planning, as if it was her absolute right. I'm your mother, end of discussion. I have the right to be here. There's no other conversation on this. She could be bringing to you ridiculous demands that she knows you would not like, but she expects you to do anyways. Things that may go against your beliefs or the traditions you want to observe, or maybe fully against your spouse's beliefs, like demanding the wedding is in a church, even if that is against your beliefs, or demanding you ignore the beliefs of your spouse if it's a mixed marriage, or stuff like that. So she could just bring you these ridiculous demands, and again, expecting you to do that. Endless comparisons to other weddings. So to how others maybe are allowing their mothers to plan and to do as they please. How other women are choosing better venues and are choosing better clothes, better dresses, and are choosing better, they're actually just better looking than you and whatever. So comparing. Everything that you do reflects on her. That's the way a narcissistic mother thinks. So making it all about what other people would think. This is another way she can go about it. Leaving you not able to choose what you wish, but to follow her expectations based on possible opinion of others. So what would other people think if you choose such and such? What would they say if you do it in a church rather than somewhere else? Like whatever. It's others' opinions that matter, and they drive her into forcing you to make decisions based on those opinions. She could weaponize approval. If she knows you seek her approval, which I know that we do, sometimes very subconsciously, but we still do, she's going to use it to control you, giving it only for the things that she likes or wants. All of these effectively can be summarized with an overall disregarding of any of your preferences. Your preference, your choices, what you want doesn't count, and she has different ways to go about it, to force you or to control you or to manipulate you into going with her decisions. She can tell you straight out what you want, like you want to do that, you want to choose that dress rather than that. Like literally like that, as if she's the only one that truly knows you. She's the only one that has the right to tell you how to do things. No one else's opinion counts, so she can just go straight to tell you exactly what you want to do based on how brilliantly she knows you. As we mentioned, she can threaten not to come or to punish you in some way if you stick with what you want. So silence treatment, not coming. She can have like a victim fit in front of everyone as to how no one is listening to her, no one is listening to her, and you're not listening, and you're not a good daughter, and blah blah blah. And that goes all the way to speaking to others about your behavior in a way that reflects bad on you and great on her, like underline how any problems with the wedding is down to you not listening to her great advice and guidance. You know, if you only had listened to her, things would have gone better. Or how you are just making her life very, very difficult with the way you're behaving, and you're disregarding her emotions. You're such a bad daughter. So she can speak publicly to this and telling everyone, which can result in the next point, sending flying monkeys. So when she starts talking to others, there's gonna be like flying monkeys, as in they're directly sent by her to talk to you, to push her decisions on you, to make you feel guilty. And then there's going to be an army of enablers. So people that are not maybe directly asked to come talk to you, but they're hearing her complaining about how you're behaving and how she's so worried for you and how she loves you so much, and the only thing that she wants is for this day to be perfect for you. But of course they will just come and still talk to you anyways. So you can have this both these types of people, the flying monkeys and the enablers, coming to you. She can make you feel you are the problem. You're being too picky or too stubborn or being unreasonable or too sensitive or too selfish and self-centered and so on. So bringing evidence of all this and involving others again, the enablers, who will agree with her. She could be picking fights with key people, such as the wedding planner or the in-laws, and make a big thing about that. She could be using every available opportunity to either brag and get acknowledgement or lament and get sympathy from any other involved. She could be confusing you by approving a thing one moment only to criticize it the next. It's another way, never actually give you clarity as to what she's okay with and what she's not okay with. So you never know where you stand with her, leaving you treading on eggshells all the time. Because when she doesn't approve, then the reaction can be very dramatic. And again, there can be guilt tripping, there can be threatening to leave, there can be scenes that she may make. So you might just end up walking on eggshells all the time, not knowing if she's okay with something or not. She could be intruding into meetings she has not been invited to, like going to see the venue or cake tasting or whatever, and just come just because you told her where it was and at what time, but you did not invite her, and yet she's there. She could be finding ways to sabotage the planning or the actual wedding day by being late for it or needing extra care when she knows you're busy planning or anything like that. And that is a lot to go through. These are only some examples. I'm sure you can come up with more as you're going through the experience. And if you are experiencing any of that, if you have been through it at the time of your wedding and suffered for it, I truly feel you, because it is intense and you're not alone in this. I've had a few clients going through this. I've had requests for this topic, so I know and I have been through it myself, and I have observed my sister in her own way going through it. So I really get it, and you are not alone in this. And if you're thinking of getting married or organizing any other important event and you're anxious and scared about all of this, I get that too, because I mean, it makes sense when you know that this is the way she's going to behave, when you know you're going to have to face all of that. That's intense. And something I actually haven't mentioned yet is if you are no contact and you are about to organize such an event. There can be you could be in doubt as to what to do, as in, will I contact and invite my mother or not? And this could cause confusion, or she could use that as an excuse to try and break the no contact, even if you have decided not to invite her. And so that also can be challenging. So if you are in this situation and you are no contact and you would like an episode specific for that, please let me know. Send me an email with a request with your specific situation, and I'll see, and I'll do my best to support you, so you can do that. The email is always at the end in the description of the episode. So what to do? There are a few things that may be helpful for you at the time of planning for your wedding when a narcissistic mother is involved. Now, not knowing your personal situation in specific, I will stay general. If we were working one-on-one on this, we would go into your specific situation and create a more personalized plan for you, going exactly with like what are the specific behaviors of your mother, what is your specific situation, and how we can work with that, even if she's neglecting, or if she's sabotaging, or if you're no contact, as we mentioned, or if she's trying to take control, and we would work specific. But here I'm gonna try and stay general and sort of offer a few tips that can just be helpful for many. And as always, take what serves you now in this moment and leave the rest, trusting that if it's there, it is for someone else. So the first thing that you can do is become aware of the behaviors of your narcissistic mother. As I mentioned with the example, that was my own experience. If I had been aware of what was going on, things would have been a lot different. I can tell you that for a fact. So know the mechanisms behind her behaviors and make your choices from there. She's a narcissist. She will try to make your wedding about her in some way or another. From this awareness, you can make your informed decision in how you want to go about this. I mean, you can do anything you want once you know what the terms are and what the situation is. So what level of your mother's involvement is acceptable for you? What choices are okay for her to make about this planning, and what you're not okay with? Like maybe you are okay with her choosing the menu because you couldn't care less, and so you can give her that as a, you just take care of that and she'll feel all great, and you choose other things. Like that's one way you can manage that, but it has to be something that is okay with you. Is it necessary for your happiness to have her at your wedding? Or maybe the opposite. So again, it's all in your hands. It's your choice. Once you know the mechanism, once you know what can happen, once you see her for what she is and understand all of that, then you can make empowered choices from there. Point number 2 is, remember when you make these choices that this is not just your day, but your life, really. And your choice is the most important one. So this is not just about the planning of an event. It's not just about the actual wedding day. This is really how you go about this is going to support you in how you go about life or not. So if you start setting clear boundaries now, if you start making your own empowered choices now, this is a precedent. And you are actually going to continue to do that more and more, empowering yourself more and more. Number 3, the most important bond at this point is the one between you and your fiancé, as that is your future. Your mother has made her own choices, and she still does, none of which you're responsible for. And that is not the most important relationship. That is not. I know that she wants you to believe that, and she will say that again and again and again, but it's not. The most important relationship is the one with your partner. I still remember when I moved away from my home place after having lived there with my at that point, husband and my newborn baby, because my mother was creating havoc in my life at that point. I remember her parting words were, when he leaves you, you will always be able to come back here. Um, and that was not nice. That was not nice. That was the constant reminder of how that relationship, the one with my mother, was to be the most important one, and everything else was gonna come and go, and men were gonna come and go, possibly hurting me, because that's what men do, which is what I've been conditioned to believe all my life, but that she was always gonna be there. And it can, from the outside, nearly seems like something very nice. Oh, isn't it nice? I mean, that your mother is always going to be there welcoming you with open arms no matter what happens in your life. It's not, because she's going to be smug as hell when things go wrong in my life. And also, it's just a completely, it's a different topic. We could go on a rant on that, but it's just to say that is not the most important relationship. Is not the most important relationship. Is the one you're about to, that you've started already, obviously, if you are thinking of getting married, but it's also that you're starting that life together. Once married, that married life together, and that is the most important bond. That is where your energy must be directed in order to make something of it. Otherwise, it's not going to work out. So that's important. That's the most important bond. Number 4, understand that it is okay to decide not to involve your mother in the planning at all, if that is your choice, as well as it is okay to decide not to invite her at the wedding at all. So none of this is about her, despite her complete expectation that it should be. And it is not about what others think either. It is your life, and you deserve to choose what feels best for you. So this is not to say that that's what you have to do, that you should not involve her. I would never say that. There's no shoulds in here, and there's no have tos. Whatever is right by you is what is right by you, and that's what the invitation is to go with. So always feel into what is right by you. The reason I'm putting this here is just to remind you that you are allowed, when you make your own choices and your decisions, also to decide maybe that you don't want to invite her, because sometimes this is what we would like to do, but then we feel we're not allowed to. We feel like we can't do that. How can I possibly not do that? Well, you are allowed. You are allowed. It's your life, it's your choice. You are allowed. And then from here, you do what's best for you. If you decide to involve her and to have her at the wedding, there are a few things to keep in mind to make your life easier. Stop trying to please her, as it is an impossible task. So if that is what you're doing, trying to make her happy in some way or another, the invitation is to stop, because it's not helpful. It's not going to ever happen. She's never going to actually be pleased. Stop trying to meet her expectations and demands in the hope to satisfy her and be left alone. She will only come up with more. So if you don't actually really care if she's pleased or not, but you want her to leave you alone, so you're just trying to do whatever she says so that she will leave you alone, it's the expectations are just going to increase. She's going to ask more. She's going to come up with more demands. So it's never going to happen that she'll reach a point where she's finally satisfied. Do your best to give no reactions to her digs, criticism, and provocations. So be like a grey rock. That's a technique. Be like a grey rock. So whatever she throws at you, just no reactions. Yeah, you think this dress is shit? Okay, whatever. But I like it, so that's just what we're gonna do. Like a grey rock. Avoid following her on her stories. They're just stories. She does not hold the truth. So whatever she goes on saying, that's just a story. Nothing that comes out of her mouth is the truth. Choose what you can plan with her and what you prefer to do without her, and then stick with this. If there are certain things you don't want to do with her, just don't. Don't even tell her where you're going and when and what time you're meeting with the wedding planner or whatever. If those things you don't want to do with her, just have her meet her with the result already done. And then she can have her own tantrum and you give no reaction to that, and then you move on. Set clear conditions. So something like, you can come to this meeting, but if you say something about whatever, then you're out. You may choose the flowers, but you have no say on the menu. If you try to push on the menu, then I will do the flowers as well. So set clear conditions and then stick to the consequences. Set clear boundaries following the formula. Boundaries around yourself, no justification, no explanation, and no reaction to her provocations. For example, if you don't want her to speak with the wedding planner, there's no point in telling her not to, because she's still gonna try. As we mentioned earlier, she can even arrive at a meeting uninvited, or she can just make it her own business to ring the wedding planner and contact, do all of these things behind your back. So set a boundary around yourself by not giving details to your mother about when you're meeting, who this person is, and what you're going to discuss, the contacts and all of that. Just that's how you set a boundary around yourself. You protect yourself not by telling her not to do things, because that's never working, but by doing things in a way that she can't actually act on it. And when she asks, give no explanation or justification. When a decision is made, it's just made. Let her face the fact with no reaction to her digs and provocations at that point. Okay, so that's like, if anything, this is like your most important point of all. If you can set boundaries this way around everything that you do, and practice. I know this is not easy, but practice, then everything's going to be a lot easier. Understand that she will not understand. She will not change. She will not finally get it. If you choose to have her involved, you need to manage her with clear boundaries, conditions, and consequences. That's just it. If you choose to have her involved, that's just how it's going to be. She's not going to all of a sudden become enlightened. She's not going to all of a sudden understand that this is about you. She's not going to have an epiphany. Now, I never say impossible to anything, but very unlikely. Very, very, very unlikely. So if you choose to have her involved, you need to know that you have to manage her. And you have to manage her with boundaries, conditions, and consequences. So if you set a condition and then she doesn't go with it, then there's going to be consequences. If you say that if she starts behaving in a certain way, then she's out. If she behaves that way, then she's out of the meeting. That's it. The meeting stops. No one speaks until the woman leaves the room, no matter what she does. If you know that you're able to put up with that and to go about it that way, and you know that you can manage it that way, and this is going to be fine for you, and that it's not going to be affecting you too much, then by all means go with it. It's not impossible. And there's different degrees and levels of narcissism as well. So like, you'll know yourself in your unique situation, how much of it you can deal with, how much of it you can manage, how much detachment have you already practiced, how much of yourself you actually have come to know, at what point in your healing journey you are. So there's lots of different variables to this. I know personally, for my own experience, that at where I am now, I wouldn't want to manage my mother. I definitely would not. If I had to get married now, even with all I know and the awareness I have and everything, I'd still rather not have her around. But that is a very, very, very personal choice. And no one can ever tell you what's actually right about this or wrong about this. There isn't such a thing as right or wrong on this decision. It's really very personal to you. So these are all invitations. These are all possible ways to go about things to make it easier. But ultimately, you need to decide how much you're able to endure, how much you are able to deal with, and if it's helpful for your life that you're creating and for the relationship that you're nourishing, the one with your partner. So all of this, you need to feel into what's right by you. Now, another point that I wanted to add is if your wedding is in the past and was not as you would have wished, and if this is in any way to do with your like if it's your mother involvement that has caused you to feel this way and how she behaved, I get you may still feel grief over it, and maybe you may feel like it was your fault how it all went. If only you had known then what you know now, and so on. And it is okay to feel anger and grief and any other emotions connected to the event. It is important to feel and process such emotions. Otherwise, they remain in your body, stuck, and they will block you from feeling fully happy. They will block you to ever wanting to plan anything else, or they'll always be there. It'll come up in like years and years and years. It'll still come up. So it's if you are feeling after listening to this episode, and if you've recognized some of the behaviors and you went, oh my, yes, my mother actually did behave that way and this way, and that was really hard, and I didn't know what to do, and just feel into whatever comes up, and you can seek support around these feelings. With your therapist or mentor or guide, in your support group. You can journal, you can access the free self-love guided practice that is available. The link is in the description of the episode, and you do the practice with the intention of releasing feelings related to that event, to bring in self-love for you in the healing of what went on that day. Like, we can always set an intention at the beginning of a practice and use it for a specific. You can do it general and just set an intention of feeling better in general, feel more love coming to you in general, and that's beautiful and it works wonders anyways. But you can also make it specific and work with it specific on something, and that will support. So you can do that. I want you to know that you did your best with what you knew at the time. You did your absolute best, just as you're doing now, and none of it was or is your fault. That's really important to remember. None of it was or is your fault. Whatever you did at the time were just coping strategies. You were and very wise at that, because you're here now. So just remember that. And again, if you are no contact and you want to know more about, like, you have questions on the whole wedding planning, and invite your mother, not invite your mother, and what if she tries to reach out and make contact and all of that, send me an email. And if you have any other questions on this topic, if all of this has brought up questions, I understand that this is a big topic and I just try to put as much as possible in one episode to be of best support, but again, it's impossible to put it all in. So if there's any questions, reach out. You can do it in the comments. If you're listening to this on a platform that has comments, the best way is to send me an email, because that's the most guaranteed that I'm going to answer. Sometimes I do my best, but sometimes I don't see all the comments. So I appreciate your comments, because those are always welcome. They help the listens and they help the visibility of the podcast. So thank you for that. But if you are really wanting me to see it, and you notice that I haven't answered, it's not because I don't want to answer you. It's because I mightn't have seen the comments. So please send me an email direct, and that way it's gonna be sure that I will answer. So with that said, check the links in the description of the episodes for any offerings if you're interested in seeing what's available at the moment to work with me. And I'm gonna wish you a beautiful week. Send you lots of love. Bye for now.